Did you know that the word psychedelic literally means God breathing? We'll come to that in a minute. Hey, I'm Vego and this is Psychedelic Actualization. Today I want to talk about language. Talking about language, it's such a big topic. I have been working on a psychedelic online course for the last years. And slowly I'm starting to get to the first video. And as I wanted to get to the root of explaining everything that is true, I got to the core of language. I was studying linguistics and all the root words of words we use for psychedelic. And that's what I want to look at today and kind of teaser a little bit, because the course I'm creating is going to be hours and hours and hours and hours long, even just on this topic alone. So if you're curious about that, there's a wait list for our school community where this course will be published. You can sign up and co-create the space with all of us. So psychedelic, the word, there's so many words that refer to the things that we call psychedelic substances, right? The things themselves, the known themselves. There's a difference between that, right? The things in reality that we refer to as the substance and the psychedelic state, right? That's a whole different field of exploration that we're not going to go into today. Today I would just want to talk about what words we used and how that affects us and our state of consciousness and our community in the words we use that we refer to when we say psychedelics. So the most common one is psychedelics, right? We use psychedelic substances, psychedelics, and it literally means mind manifesting. That's what we know of, at least. But actually, there's an interesting nuance that just a few people know. It's like, it comes from Osmond and Huxley, who kind of wrote together and were finding a word for it. And Huxley would actually always say psychedelic with an O, because most of the words that are related to psychology are not with psyche, but with psycho, with an O. So psychosis, psychology, psychotropic, and so on. So he would use the word psychedelic and not the words psychedelic. Right? So that's just an interesting observation. And also, it goes back to, if we look at the root of the word psyche, it means mind or soul or life, but actually the Greek root word for it is breath or life. So breath. And delos, there's a whole different field on theories out there, and I'm not sure if this is 100% true, I'll have to say. But from one source I heard that delos comes from the Greek island Delos, and then that kind of came from the word dew, and that is rooted in the word Zeus or Deus, which means God in Greek, which means to shine, and it was referring to a sun god. And so basically the root word of the word delos is God. So psychedelic means literally God breathing or God minded. That's just a fun fact. And stay tuned till the end, because there's so much more depth to our language. I was mind blown by the amount of depth that our communication and the impact of our language has also on just my own understanding of how I approach my psychedelic journeys. That was the most surprising and crucial factor, and we'll come to that in a bit. So, a very common word as well is entheogens, right? Entheogens means becoming with divine within. A lot of times it is misunderstood or mistranslated as generating the divine within, creating the divine within, but actually it means becoming divine within. And the context that this word was arising of, it was not to refer to a subgroup of substances, but actually what it refers to is the context of use. It refers to the context of use. It is not an aim to classify or categorize the substances themselves. But the word entheogens and entheogenic use basically refers to the context of use, of aiming to become divine within. That is kind of what is happening in these contexts of using these plants and substances. So that's an interesting one that I also thought there's a lot more depth to that as well, which we'll get to in the course, but just interesting to share and just very uncommon knowledge, I guess, in the psychedelic community. Let me know if you knew those two things. I was surprised to learn them over the last couple of years and months. So very interesting. Then we have plant medicine, right? Or medicine itself, if we refer to chemicals even, and not plant-based substances. Sometimes a lot of people call them medicines, or even sacred plant medicines. That's an interesting one as well. Each of these terms, there's no right or wrong, right? There's a matter of preference on how we wish to call these substances, on how we wish to refer to them. And the medicine is an interesting one because it sounds so beautiful, as in it transforms sickness into health. Or a definition I like is it brings into balance that which was in chaos. That's what a medicine does. So that's a beautiful kind of referring to the space and also to the context of use as well, right? And then also I've heard the perspective, which I found quite interesting, of like medicine implies sickness. So it implies that we are sick, which kind of is in a little bit of dissonance with the perspective of we are always already whole. We are complete and perfect as we are. Right, and I mean, even that these paradoxes can exist at the same time, but then referring to using medicines all the time implies or might integrate the notion that we have a sickness that we need to heal and that we are not always already complete and whole. Just an interesting perspective as well. Sacrament is another one, using it as a sacrament. Hallucinogen is an interesting one as well. A lot of division in the community regarding that word. A lot of people say, okay, like, it's not causing hallucinations, right? And then we have the perspective of, what even is a hallucination? Like, what are we even talking about? See, that's the problem with language. Each of these words that are used to explain every single other word is unclear as well. And we'll get to that in the course, to the roots of language and the problem with language itself and how we can also resolve that to come to peace with language, because language is groundless. It's groundless. It's always empty, the things we're saying, and each word we say has to be explained with other words, which are basically also just to be explained with other words, which are basically all empty. It's a fascinating field. So what even is a hallucination if we say it causes hallucination? Is our life a hallucination? What does normal state consciousness even mean? What is ordinary states of consciousness? Many people are not even starting to think of that. It's insane. Like, as you can see, I got even like a little bit insane of like just inquiring into this topic of exploring how I want to refer to or what words I want to use for these substances. It's absolutely nuts. There are also a lot of other old terms like psychotomimetics and all of these, and a lot of new memes and words for these substances, which I want to leave out for today for this video, but a lot of interesting and fun things to explore that it can also tell us just a lot about the nature of these experiences itself. Then we have all the chemical names, right? Mostly tryptamines and phenethylamines, and all of the different nuances that is in the class of chemistry and all the molecules. Also very interesting to explore. Then we have the one non-specific awareness amplifier. It is an amplification of awareness, and it's non-specific. That's what a lot of people say as well. It's non-directive, but it shows us basically what is inside and it amplifies that. Which is an interesting one. I don't know how I stand to that. I'll contemplate that more, but on one part I can see clearly how what is inside of me, that's where the importance of set and setting, especially set, is coming from, right? Is coming out to the surface. It's even hidden and unconscious stuff is coming out and it's amplified. My awareness is amplified so I can look at what is here and what is right here, right now. But also, in some of my experiences, for example, in my 8-gram mushroom journey, you can watch the trip report right here, it definitely felt like something from the outside was coming in. And it was very much directive and it was very specific. the entity, the encounter of the entity, I was not sure if it was always already there or it was something inside of me. And I'm not sure till this day that if this was something that was inside of me, this alien encounters, right, entity encounters, or if it's something outside that is coming in, which can direct the experience in a specific way, which means it's a very specific awareness amplifier in a specific way. And yeah, the whole thing of how it works and what it is a whole different can of worms that we're not going to go into. Also, we have the basic ones, basically materials, substances, drugs. Basically, we go broader and broader with the terms of how we refer to these substances, which I like. It looks like it's visionary. Maybe you put another word in front of these broader terms, which means visionary materials, mind-expanding drugs, whatever else it is, right? That's also an interesting one. Mind. The word mind and mind manifesting, mind expanding is a very interesting notion, because then what do we define as mind? What is mind? What is being expanded or manifested in the experience? And what about the 5-MeO-DMT experience where it feels like the mind is annihilated, or even in other psychedelic experiences where the mind is reduced? What do we refer to as mind when we say the word mind? Do we refer to our human mechanisms of ego, or do we refer to mind at large, as in Hinduist philosophy of like the Atman, or even the Brahman of like the mind at large? See, it's so many. I just want to share all these nuances and complexities in our language. It's such a... I became kind of passionate about this, and a little bit insane as well. And at last, we also have the word technology, we have the word tools, and we have the word catalysts. It's an interesting one, the word tools, because also a lot of what I observed in my language and also in language in the community is that we are using psychedelics. We are using psychedelics to gain something for ourselves, or what does the word use imply in our language, right? And also the word tool. I'm using a tool to build something for myself, to get a benefit for myself. It might be our approach, right? But also just thinking about what that does in relationship to the psychedelic itself. Because we also have the category of people who say, hey, I refer to psychedelics as a friend, as an ally, maybe even as a maestro or a teacher, or a spirit of like a living entity living in the substance itself, or being the substance itself, which is also hard to wrap our mind around with psychedelic chemicals, right? That there's a spirit, there's a teacher or a friend or an ally in there, but referring to it as that. And then we don't want to use or abuse our friends or our teacher, right? We are co-creating a space with them. We are not using them. Same goes with meditation. I use meditation to get peace. Feels like a wrong approach for me. Feels like not as aligned as, okay, I am co-creating a space with life in tapping into a relationship and a presence and a co-created space with myself and with life. That's what meditation is, kind of. I'm not using meditation to get enlightened, to whatever else, right? It feels like it's at least for me, it feels like a less resonant approach. But interesting, just to contemplate also the notions of tools, technology, catalysts, right? We're catalyzing, or we're using the substances to catalyze something, or especially with DMT. DMT is a lot referred to not just, it's not a drug, it's a technology, right? It feels like a technology. It feels like it's something we can even bring back and build here, and it's like it's a super fascinating space. And I guess that's about it that I wanted to share. I've been rambling on for quite some time, and as I said, this was just a tiny sliver of everything I'm going to share in the course. The course is going to be insane. It's going to be... I was planning to talk about every single topic about that's included in the psychedelic space, which is impossible. So I just started with language because that seems to be the root of everything that we talk about, right? Because we use language to communicate. I use language right here, and it's going to be a whole 4, 5, 6, 7 hour course just about language, just to understand the notions and implications of psychedelics and the noun and the verb of what we refer to when we refer to these states of consciousness and also to these substances in the material world itself. And it's going to be super fascinating. Sign up for the waitlist, please do, and let's co-create this school community place together. It's gonna be insane. Yeah, that's about it. Last question, maybe. Does it even matter? I would say not as much as I might have emphasized right here. It's like it works, right? The way we do it and the way we communicate. But also I think it does matter on another level, because it does have a lot of implications in politics, in community sharing circles, inside the psychedelic community itself for clarity of communication and language. Also outside of the community, clarity of communication and language in referring to our experiences with people who are not familiar with the space. Super important to be very aware and clear in our language and also be mindful of and maybe even understand and know what we're talking about when we are referring to these states of consciousness and to these substances, to raise the collective level of awareness to get to a more true, resonant and deep understanding of how that's gonna evolve. And it's such a mystery, that's the whole thing. But before we surrender to the silence and we acknowledge the duality of language as being insufficient to describe ultimate reality, let's try. That's what we're doing right here. Thank you so much for being here. You can watch the next video right here in the end cut, subscribe to the channel, comment down below. Much love, and I'll see you in the next one.